The handouts that I just gave you is going to give us some time to practice some of the things that we did from 6.1 to 6.3. And also now that we have our family of angles that we can do mental math, we're going to use that a little bit as well. Okay, so some of these questions will be review, but some of them happen so much that they're important. There are so many questions. I don't know if this is going to be a surprise for you. There are so many questions in trigonometry that involve triangles. Which shouldn't, I mean, it's like, what? But because trigonometry involves triangles, sometimes we forget that a main strategy is, can you draw a triangle? So, it tells me cos of theta is 3/8 and theta is not in quadrant 1. If I draw all 4 quadrants, what quadrant would it be in? Right? Well, it's positive, so it's in 1 or 4, but it's not in 1, they tell us, so it would have to be in 4. So I draw an angle in quadrant 4, and when I make a triangle, I have to go back to the nearest x-axis so that I have a reference angle included.
Mr. Bureau, is this in degree or is this in radian?
It doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
Okay, so is it degrees or is it radians? It doesn't matter in this question.
Okay.
Because, well, the answer is going to be the same whether it was in degrees or radians, but what can I label on this triangle? If I know cos is 3/8, I know that my adjacent side is 3, my hypotenuse is 8, and you're going to get really good at a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's going to be square root of 64 minus 9, 55. Does the question ask us to find theta? No. We're not asked to find theta. We're asked to find sine of theta, and sine of theta is a ratio of the opposite side over the hypotenuse, and since we're in quadrant 4, it would have to be negative. Question?
I think that's a 55.
So we're going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Yeah.
And in this case, the hypotenuse is the 8, so that's by itself. I'll just call it b. So now I'm going to do that mental math. 8 squared is 64. You're going to have to move the 3 squared over to the other side. So in this case, it's going to be 64 minus 9. And again, we're going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared so much that we'll probably in grade 12 never write this out, just do it in our head. And same thing for tan of theta. Tan of theta is opposite over adjacent, and tan is also going to be negative in quadrant 4. And we use our reference angle to see which is the opposite, which is the adjacent. So that's why drawing the triangle is so important. Why does it not matter what it is? Because we never find the angle. This angle, right? The reference angle might be 50 degrees, right? In which case it would be about 0.9 radians. But we don't know. Doesn't really matter. So unless you're finding an angle, and this would be a non-calculator question. All right, ready? Okay. Is this point on the unit circle? Sometimes the initial answer that students give is no, because they're like, I just did my unit circle. I studied for my quiz, and I remember this one wasn't on there. But, unfortunately, there's more points on the circle than just this. There's like an infinite amount of points I could draw in here. Ooh. So now, is this one on there? How do I find out? Okay. There is a couple of ways. Okay, so there's a couple of strategies. We could use the equation of the circle, which is also the big idea, right? The equation of the unit circle is this, or we could use the big idea that sine squared theta plus cos squared theta equals 1. If it's on the unit circle, then this is cos theta and this is sine theta. That only works if it's on the unit circle. And if it's on the unit circle and that's cos theta and that's sine theta, then squaring them and adding them up has to equal 1. So as far as showing the work here, this is my question. Does this squared plus this squared equal 1? Is that true? If it equals 1, then the answer is yes, it's on the unit circle. If it equals any other number, then the answer would be no, it's not on the unit circle. So let's check. How do we square numbers? Square root of 3 would be 3. 3 squared would be 9. Plus 6 over 9 equals 9 over 9. Okay.
Will it then tell us when we use calculators and we can't use calculators?
Yes. So on your exam, there's a calculator section and a non-calculator section. Same thing for tests. I'll have a calculator section and non-calculator section. So the answer to this one is yes. It is on the unit circle. Okay. Again, question number 3, this will be the last one we'll do before the class ends. Is a point on the unit circle in quadrant 3? Can you find y? So we can draw an angle in quadrant 3 and go back to the nearest x-axis. From this, we would know that cos of theta is negative 12 over 13. So I'm going to give you 2 options here. I'm going to give you one option and kind of allude to the second option, but I like option 1 better. If I draw back to the nearest x-axis, making this my reference angle, and cos is negative 12 over 13, well, that means the adjacent side is 12, the hypotenuse is 13. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. You're going to find out this is 5. Okay? If I draw it this way, the point on the unit circle is, like my unit circle, it would actually be tiny on this diagram. Because this length is 13. What is the radius of my unit circle? 1. So we're actually thinking about this point right here. But we can use the bigger triangle to figure it out. Because what's the y-coordinate? The y-coordinate is sine of theta. And sine of theta, opposite over hypotenuse, quadrant 3, it'll be negative. So that's how I can solve for my y-coordinate. Okay? You could also do a squared plus b squared or sine squared plus cos squared equals 1. But then you're doing with fractions. The triangle lets you use whole numbers and then just write your answer as fractions in the end.